Hello. This is just a quick reminder that this is actually part 2 of my conversation with Katie Walker, CRNA and CEO of Revitalist Lifestyle and Wellness. This week, we really get into the nuts and bolts of running a large public company with many employees and investors to please. If you missed last week's episode, make sure you go back and give it a listen. I hope you enjoy part 2 of our discussion. Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today. And now, on with the show. You guys are, publicly owned, and most companies out there are privately owned. So what made you guys first start thinking about having a public listing, and, how fun was that process?
It's right. That's very interesting. Yeah. So, right. So CRNAs, entrepreneurial piece for CRNAs, I'm pretty sure I really want to do this study one day. So if there's a CRNA out there listening to this that likes statistics and studies, I would love to see some type of study out there that showed that CRNAs were the most entrepreneurial profession out there. And I would be surprised if there were others out there that were more entrepreneurial than they were in the healthcare system. Mm-hmm. Because I really think that that's a unique aspect there. With those pieces, so there's already some companies like ours that are on NASDAQ. So I started receiving a lot of calls from people wanting to get in the space, right? Because they're expecting the psychedelic space is going to be a $10 to $30 billion market, and ketamine is kind of the first real-time psychedelic-ish thing, that they're categorizing. So that's kind of how the investors started coming in. One group that we actually ended up partnering with, when I started talking to them, they came to me and they said, hey, they really want to do this, like to make it like cannabis kind of clinics. And I was like, yeah, it's not going to work different. So that group actually shifted their entire mindset. They listened to what I was saying and they said, you're right. Let's just do a completely different deal just with us. Let's figure it out. So those are the ones like when they said that. And two, so with Revitalist, which I owned in 2018 and now the public owns, with Revitalist specifically, I was personally, my closed-mindedness was going to keep it separate from all the other ones that we were going to open because that was my baby. But my husband made a good point when he said, well, how are you going to get people to believe in your vision if you're keeping yours here? And he was right. I was like, okay, I hear that.
Yeah.
With that piece, we decided to make Revitalist the public company and really want it to be as comprehensive as possible to where we can move forward with this. So fortunately, the partners that I do have, they have a lot of experience in the capital markets. Most of them are CPAs, which is, what you need for a successful business. But yeah, so, it only took us about 6 months to get listed publicly on the Canadian Securities Exchange. And then now we're actually also on OTC. So OTC is over-the-counter exchange to where, Americans can actually buy Canadian stock with US dollars. So you can do Robinhood, Fidelity, all those guys have Revitalist. So OTC's ticker is like RVLWF. But then we're also on the Frankfurt Securities Exchange because why would you choose Frankfurt? Frankfurt is actually one of the largest stock exchanges in the world. So we even have people internationally. So you can buy actually stock in US dollars, Canadian, or Euro. Okay. So with that piece, the biggest thing is learning to do stock videos for investors, right? Because, in the hospital system, we don't care who you are, what you are, we're here to take care of you. And that shifts when you're talking to investors because, they don't want to walk out and put their money in something to where there's no return. Like there's got to be a two-way street. How can you help me? How can I help you? How can we create this partnership to where both parties are happy? So that's a piece of it, but yeah, the public company, I'm still learning, right? A lot of that. It's going to be a second. But I have a great team to where they actually will break down a lot of those things for me, because I just don't, heck, in healthcare, we don't teach anything about business. Nobody knows business, right? So it's learning all these things, having these awesome CPAs, understand the public, the private sector, all these different pieces. And really, I mean, I've really been blessed with that. Looking at the piece because we're supposed to be opening up 156 clinics by 2025. But looking at that, why would I want to do that? And it's because I started seeing the gross exaggeration of thought processes out there. To where people, to a point, I don't feel are always thinking comprehensively about risks and benefits and long-term things, so I wanted to start, I was like, okay, I'll help you because I want to maintain quality. And that's a big piece with Revitalist is we want to maintain quality. We want to make sure there's some type of continuity of care because that doesn't really exist in the outpatient world. But, and evolving best practices, right? As anesthesia providers, we're so scientifically driven. We can understand the science and put it in real life. And that's a bridge a lot of people don't understand. Like, I don't think CRNAs understand how unique they are as providers. And once they get in this space, they'll start to identify it more. It's just going to be on the CRNA, the empowering confidence that we have. Are we going to balance that the best by taking care of ourselves and then also knowing when to ask for help to have that support for that business? So that's a big piece there.
So does part of your expansion include like say a CRNA is running their own business, but they're just having problems. It's a lot to juggle on their own. And they call you up and they say, hey, are you offering space in your company? Would you like to take over my clinic? Or would you like to come in and advise us? What kind of services do you offer in that realm? Or, what does that kind of an interaction look like for you guys?
Yeah. So a couple of things. So we do a buy and build, right? So we're doing right now we're doing an 80% build, 20% buy.
Okay.
But we are acquiring clinics for that. We are talking to, everybody who owns the clinics, as long as they meet a common, vision is what we're looking for. I mean, I think the big piece there with, and CRN or whomever is running clinics, they'll hear this. As the clinic owner, you're the CFO, the COO, the CEO, you're all the C's, right? You are the C-suite. You do payroll, you do the opening and closing, you pay the bills, you do all this stuff. To where once we acquire, we bring them under our wing. They're still the lead provider there, the CRNA is, because we want to have those ACLS and those PAL skill sets, right? For whatever comes into the door, we can really be able to work with pharmaceutical companies, whatever else. So that CRNA can will lead that clinic, and they'll help to bring in, hiring with therapists or, psychiatrists and whomever, but we help them to try to understand like, okay, this is what we think would be best. What do you think? So there's a lot of shared governance there. And then the CRNAs, or nurse, we have a lot of really awesome nurse practitioners that have joined us as well. But, when those people come in and they're like, and we start seeing that niche that person might want to do, then we'll hire in for something that, they were doing that they're going to do. Like, actually, we have this promotion here. We're going to promote you here, and we're going to hire somebody here to bring that in. So there's a lot of diversity there for growth. But yeah, we would be able, those clinics that come to us, we take over their marketing. We take over their accounting, their malpractice, their general liability, all those things that can somewhat be a headache. We take over all of those, and, paying all their utilities, their rent, all those things, to where we actually give that CRNA a salary, give them they become a salaried individual. And then, they get PTO. We're working on a 401k. We have internal insurance, medical insurance. So it's really bringing them in, but really they're more of a corporate executive, to help lead that location. to help build it. There's a lot of people are like, I don't want to be an employee. There's a lot more responsibility than being an employee. There's a lot of super awesome growth potentials there because we also have an athletic sector, right? We have an athletic advisory board. We have a police division to where we've treated a lot of active duty police officers. We have adolescent division. We have a contract with the Department of Defense through the VA. So we have a huge veteran division, so it's all these even different divisions that we're creating to where, if somebody comes in and, hey, whatever experience they may have. Hey, I've been married to a police officer for 30 years. I understand it. I get it. I really want to help out with that division. We'll help, that person can actually help lead that division grow out as well. So there's just tons of opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like too, I mean, if somebody was in a region, like say here in North Carolina where I live, and you needed somebody who was more of a regional manager, if they're opening up and, overseeing the opening or running of several clinics at once, then that's a whole other opportunity in and of itself. So, yeah, but that, and I think it's interesting. I would not have thought about the different divisions that you talked about, the police division, the VA, all those kinds of things. You imagine those types of people coming in, and certainly there are concentrations of veterans in certain towns, that where there's a military base and things like that. But to actually put the specific emphasis on saying, you know what, this is what we're going to have some specialized help for this population. I think that's remarkable. I commend you on that, because that's something that you don't see as much of for, these size of clinics. Normally it's like, okay, well, whoever comes in the door, that's who we're going to take care of. And not to say that that's not what's happening, but the specialization certainly helps, I think.
Right. And so, traditionally speaking, when we say underserved, we always think of the financially disadvantaged. But if you look at every division that we have, those are all underserved divisions because they're divisions that people don't feel comfortable. So adolescents, like the youngest we've had is 12. There's not a lot of providers that want to take care of anything less than 21 years of age. Fortunately, as anesthesia providers with our PAL certification, we're comfortable in dealing with kids. Like we've been trained specifically on how to deal with the pediatric population. So it's those pieces to where you want to be able to have somebody who feels comfortable, even with the therapist, right? So we actually have a therapist that worked with special forces in the military. That therapist understands what those guys and gals go through, in the military, to whereas if I just had a new grad therapist who is working, like I wouldn't put them with a sniper, so we really want to be able to speak to the cultures that come to us. Even like, the different populations of color, right? So we have a Black female nurse practitioner who's working in mental health. Most of our Black individuals don't look at mental health at all because of, historical things, right? The Tuskegee experiments and things like that. But they're still struggling and suffering, and they still have an issue, but it's much more behind closed doors because these people just aren't ready to talk about it. So how do we make sure that they're being heard as well? So every piece of this company will have some type of diversity to where I'll tell people, I don't care what you are, what you're going for, whatever else, when you walk through that door, every person associated with this company is there to help you support your goals. And we don't care, and that's a piece with the medical field. We were never told to ask why someone was there. We were treating that person. And if we didn't treat them, that was against our ethics. That doesn't actually exist in the mental health world. In the mental health world, if their values don't align, then they can't see that person. That's really hard right now. I mean, for me to understand as a medical provider, because it didn't matter if somebody came in with shackles on and 4 officers, I couldn't ask them what they did. I was there to take care of that person. And that's what I want this company to represent. And that's why I think the CRNAs having those leadership roles, having that empathy, but also those critical care skills, that's what sets us apart,
Yeah. So I would love to learn more about what your clinics actually offer from a service perspective? Because we've talked about all the people that are involved, in some way, but what is it that that a client gets, like when they walk in the door? What are they coming into your clinics to find, and what is it that they actually find?
So a lot of times some people are just looking for help, right? They're just looking for somebody to answer the call and try not to have a 9-month wait. Other people are, I've tried all these things, it doesn't work, or I don't want to get on a pill. There's just a lot of different things. So with the clinics, we do offer consults, complimentary consults for every person that wants to come in. So we want people to come in with consults with referrals, but if somebody's just trying to look into, to understand, like, what are you offering? Like we make it able to where anybody can call and just come and sit and talk to a provider. And if they don't have the, the background or, to meet the protocols that we have, then we send them to a therapist, and the therapist can help with that, because therapists diagnose people all the time, right? That's part of their scope of practice. So, if somebody wanted to come in, like, we offer ketamine infusions, therapy. So we do intra-therapy infusions. We offer mental health coaching, which is different than therapy. So it's like, hey, I'm looking for some direction. It's almost like personal training for your brain.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking for some direction on the way life's going, and I don't need to process anything. I don't need a therapist, but I just need some direction. So we have mental health coaching. We have vitamin infusions, which are remarkable. Like, I get them quarterly. Had no idea that vitamin infusions were so amazing, but just a small gist of that is, cellularly wise, when you take vitamins IV, you absorb 100%. It creates over 800 enzymatic processes that last for 4 to 6 weeks, even though they're water soluble. Orally speaking, you absorb a max of 40% of whatever you take, because it doesn't bypass first pass metabolism, goes through the gut, does all these things, to where you just oversaturate your receptors, as everyone probably knows who feels like they took a little bit too many vitamins. You oversaturate your receptors, you're in the bathroom acutely. But IV wise, you bypass all of that, right? So vitamins, great for your health, great for tendons and ligament repair. There's a lot of studies on pain. The fogginess. So actually post-COVID long hauler syndrome, 30% of people who had COVID are having the long haul. We're given a Myers cocktail and 25 grams of vitamin C, and we're having almost 100% of increase in or decrease in the symptoms, to where they're able to take a deeper breath. Their brain fog goes away. They're able to sleep, and they go to the gym. Like, the fatigue's gone, like all of a sudden. So it's these things that our research and development team's really hammering on. We also offer TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. That is like different. I would say that's more voodoo-ish, especially in our space, knowing medicine. But so TMS, they recognize that people who actually had repetitive MRIs back in the 80s were having decrease in their symptoms of depression. So they took that, they ran with it. And what TMS is showing is it's actually changing the neuromodulation. So it's the repetitive forces. And if you think about it, if we go down to the cellular level and you're like, well, we do have a lot of metals, and they are using magnets. So are they using those magnets, and they'll go to the same area, and it's to strengthen those structures, to where people are actually having more cohesive, prioritized, categorized thought processes, which actually takes them out of that, I don't know, I just don't feel right kind of thing, So it's not invasive, right? And people can pay cash for that. Insurance is starting to cover it. You have to fail 4 antidepressants before insurance will cover it. So that's kind of a hellacious process someone has to go through in order to get it covered by insurance. But we do have bundling options for pricing and stuff with that. We have Sprovato. So Sprovato is a FDA approved nasal spray. It's S-ketamine. It's not as effective as IV ketamine, but you know what? IV is not for everybody, right? Some people could do Sprovato, and we do actually. We see this from what the studies say versus what we've seen. What we've seen is much more remarkable than what the studies say. Okay. And so the people with Sprovato are the ones, I can't get out of bed. I feel like I have no quality of life. I don't want to kill myself, but they're not acutely suicidal or anything like that, because Sprovato takes 2 to 3 to 4 weeks. So it's more to your chronic people, and they've had to fail, 2 antidepressants before insurance will cover that. So the services that we offer, somebody can walk in, and actually we have acupuncture in our Knoxville clinic. Hopefully we'll have it at all the other clinics as well. But they walk in, and it's going to be a full service wellness clinic, right? So mental health, we're making that part of who we are. Is it neurologic? Are we conditioning ourselves correctly or incorrectly? Can we break the pattern? Because all of us are on a path. We may not recognize it, but we all are. And sometimes our paths need to be readjusted to where we can just get on a different path and be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I didn't know that it was thinking that way. So those are the pieces that we really want to be able to speak to the person instead of speaking specifically to the diagnosis. So when people come in with depression's a 72% blanket diagnosis. Usually there's 4 other things that are coexisting with depression. So you'll have symptoms of trauma, anxiety, suicidality, and depression. So when that person comes in with a diagnosis of depression, we expect there's much more complexity to that, because are they really treatment resistant, or are we just not addressing directly what's causing those symptoms to show themselves?
Wow, that was awesome. That was so cool. So now we talked about expanding in the future, the idea of having well over 100 clinics by 2025. So that's obviously in just a few years. What do you think is going to happen in the next 10 years with this space?
I think mental health is going to change completely.
Yeah.
With this space, especially, it's an optimal time right now. Hospitals, they've decreased. Think about it. 15 years ago, we kept people in the hospital 7-10 days. Insurance companies, they just don't pay for it now unless you're dying.
Yeah.
But then we closed all the mental health facilities, 10 years-ish ago. So, we've done all these things to where we haven't had anything that could actually replace it until now. So I think that these clinics are going to be able to be that bridge between primary care and the hospital, or primary care and the ER. It's going to be the urgent cares, but it's going to be a wellness urgent care, not, hey, I broke my bone needs to be replaced. It's one of those, when they walk in, we'll be able to treat the person as a whole and understand the somatic responses, as well as whatever the mind's doing versus the anatomical presentations of things. So I'm really, really hopeful for the world. Honestly, I know that's a big statement, but people are starting to catch on. Australia just had a huge meeting with this. Europe had a big meeting, so they're starting to catch on. If anybody feels hopeless right now, these clinics should bring people hope. But it's going to be the fact of our providers taking care of ourselves and each other in order to make sure we all move together in a forward, progress.
Yeah. Well, Katie, this is, just been such an enlightening look into the intersection of, mental health and business and, society in general. And so I do, we've run pretty long here. So I want to give folks a chance to get a hold of you and possibly get involved with what you're doing. How can they do that?
A couple of things. So, each location has its own website. So we have 7 locations open now, but grossly speaking, you go to revitalist.com. And then also, the best way to get in touch with me most effectively would be the email corporate@revitalist.com. My personal email is kathrynwalker@revitalist.com. But it takes a second. I'll get back to people. They may have to tap me on the shoulder again. I'll get back to people, but it just takes a second sometimes. So I would say that would be the best way, is to start corporately, and then it will get, diluted down to me. But yeah, always we're looking for people. We're looking for the best people to help to push forward with this mission.
Fantastic. Well, this has been a lot of fun, and thank you so much for joining me today. Best of luck to you with your business moving forward. I got so much out of the conversation that I had with Katie. She has such a wonderful vision for her company, and she's surrounding herself with the right people to actually make it happen. More importantly, though, she's repeatedly emphasized that the same traits that make us successful anesthetists also make us successful in the business world. CRNAs are able to look at the whole picture of a situation, prioritize the immediate needs, and then take action. These are crucial talents in the world of business. And I'm constantly impressed at the ways that anesthetists utilize their abilities to push the envelope. There are just so many amazing stories out there. Now, that's going to do it for me. Until next time, be safe and take care of each other out there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On-Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On-Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.